will right now. Is that correct? Everyone can see a little big me and little me. Cool. Thanks for the thumbs up, Louise. All right, awesome. So we're going to jump in. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a mindset coach and a human behavior specialist. And it's taken me 20 years to prepare for this. So I've toured around Australia in original bands. I've completed 5 albums or been part of bands completing 5 albums. I've done 2 completely on my own under the guise Mega Love, and I've got 31 songs on Spotify now. And I've been studying human behavior and personal development with world leaders, spending 30 grand on my education, which is the information I'm going to share with you today. And that's beyond my Bachelor of Education, my Bachelor of Music and my Diploma of Education. And I actually just signed up the other day to another program, which is going to be sort of 25 grand over the next 2 to 3 years. Because I wanted to learn and I wanted to know and I wanted to be able to share this information and really make an impact in musicians' lives. And I built a music school which had 130 students in term 1 this year. Lockdown definitely changed that. And we've got 4 team members sort of working all on Zoom at the moment, teaching different instruments, which is really cool. And over the last 4 years, I've been working with private clients as a coach and mentor, testing and developing this system that really works and helps you get more results to be more confident. Cool, but the most important thing I want you to be aware of is there's nothing really unique or special about me. I just learnt and reached out to people and studied and did all those crazy courses that you might see pop up on online where you're just like, what is that? That sounds like someone trying to steal my money. Well, I actually went and did a whole bunch of them. And I actually learnt all of this really cool information that now I want to share with musicians, because all the people that were teaching it to me weren't creatives and they didn't really know how to communicate to me in terms of this creative way of looking at the world. So did you guys know that musicians are 3 times more likely to experience depression from a UK study in 2018? Musicians are up to 10 times more likely to face mental health issues, and suicide attempts are more than double. And when I read that, I was absolutely terrified. I was like, I knew that there was a problem, but I didn't realize it was to that extent. And musicians on average are making less than 50 grand a year. And just to put that into context, like when I started making 50 grand a year, I was like, man, I'm making 50 grand a year. This is awesome. Sort of in my mid 20s. Minimum wage is sort of about 38 grand, just under 40 grand. And when I started talking to people, most people wanted to be able to afford their own home. And so I did a bit of research into that. And if you wanted to keep your loan repayments down to a sort of manageable amount, on a $500,000 home loan, that would be $30,000 a year. So if you were trying to manage, and trying to keep your home loan repayments under 25% of what your income is, you really should be making or having a target of around 120 grand combined income in a household, which I thought was a fascinating thing to think that making 50 grand was enough. And 45% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, with 65% during the first 10 years. And so for some people, maybe you're not thinking about music being a business, but I do know that when you start getting into your late 20s, early 30s, or wherever you are in your journey, that if you don't turn it into some way of generating income, it just becomes something that's either too hard or whatever. So we're working towards creating a sustainable business, doing something that you love and helping other people in the process. Cool. So I appreciate everyone being here. Thanks a lot. I'm definitely not going to waste your time. I'm going to give you practical and actionable steps, and I promise you're going to get something out of this. So this is for you if you're a musician, music producer, or teacher, or some sort of creative human being who wants to be confident in yourself, take your musical career to the next level, do what you love, and make a living and a difference. And essentially, we talk about money and stuff like that a little bit today, but essentially, you want to be that person making a difference. And the reality is, if you've got more cash, you can make a bigger difference. And so that was a huge lesson for me. But I hope that makes sense to everybody. Cool. All right, so this isn't for anyone who wants things to be easy. You want something from nothing, You want a magic pill, a get-rich-quick scheme, and you want to stay the same. So what we're doing here is we're learning about content that's going to make us sustainable and consistent. And so that is the key here with anything. And if you look up or learn about how much it takes to actually break an original artist on a major label, it's somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million. And so for us who don't have that information or that amount of resource, we're going to have to do that in time and effort instead of having the cash to actually pay all these people to do it. So we want to make sure that you're in this for the long haul. All right, so my goal today is to help you turn your art into a full-time career you love. And so if you want to make that into money, that's cool. If not, that's also cool, but we want to make it sustainable and just give you tools to be able to make a difference in people's lives and also in your own life. Cool, have more confidence, be more consistent, that's the key there. Make music and make a difference. And if you want to make a living, that's cool too. All right, so how you can get the most out of this presentation: turn off your phone, be in a quiet room, take lots of notes, immerse yourself, be present. And just so, if you guys haven't, I'm going to be sharing with you some information today that's going to have a workbook or an element, a toolkit that you can actually use. So if you jump across to Facebook, maybe not right now, maybe in the break, you can join me on Facebook in the Confident Musician group, and that's what it's called. And there's going to be some information in there in the files section. So if you want to join the group and join in the conversation, other people doing similar things. All right. So what most important thing today is I want you to understand what your intention is. So if you've got a piece of paper to take some notes, I just want you to write down what your intention is for today. And if you want to type that in the chat box, that would be cool too, so we can get an idea of what you're interested in and what you want to learn and what you would love to get out of today. So type it in the chat box. Charlie, Louise, DePucci. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. Please correct me if I haven't. Yeah, type it in the chat box. What's your intention for today? To be more confident performing your original songs. Awesome. Cool. Bradley's just joining us. Here for some guidance navigating the music industry. Bradley, you've just jumped in. Welcome to the Confident Musician, how to build a more positive mindset. And yeah, we're just typing in the chat box, what is our intention for today? And you can also just let us know where you're dialing in from, if you like. Just type it into the chat box. All right. And that's great. And so what would you love to learn today, if it's not specifically what it is linked to your into your intention? And yeah, I'd like to invite you to, because this is about confidence and potentially stepping out of your comfort zone. If you want to have your camera up so we can see who you are and give us a wave. You can also just take your microphone off if you've got any questions. But first point of call, just type them into the chat box. All right, what would you love to learn? Yeah, what inspired you to be here today? How will you know you've invested your time wisely today? That's kind of a next level question that I'm always asking my clients about. Like when you spend money with me to help you, how will you know that you invested your money and time wisely today? And one little extra one is, if you could wave a magic wand to change something about your life, what would it be? All right. I'd love to learn how to allocate my time and effort into activities that will most benefit my music journey. That's cool. That's a really specific outcome. I'm definitely going to help you see some really cool stuff in order to do that. And do you feel like there's, Charlie, do you feel like there's anything specific that's kind of in the way of that at the moment? Some next level question to ask you. All right, cool. So, just to give you guys a little bit of background on my story and my journey over the last 10 years. So, everything was kind of fine. I was mastering my craft as a musician, and I just assumed that eventually someone would find me on YouTube and I'd be famous. And then I just had this immense frustration and confusion. And then when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. So I had this mentor and coach actually sit me down and just let me know that, basically that, they could help me. And because I was in this really bad place. So 2010, just to give you a bit of background, I basically just gone through this pretty crazy section of my life, and I basically felt like I'd alienated myself from all of my friends and family. I was really depressed and alone, and I was making music, but I was like on stage and doing all this stuff, and every time I'd do something amazing, I'd just come out of it, and I'm just like, it just doesn't help me solve this internal conflict that I've got, or this problem that I had. I was being really inconsistent. So I'd get like fully excited about something, and then all of a sudden I'd do it, and then all of a sudden just there's no follow-up and there's no consistency. So I just kept doing more things, getting more equipment, and I just end up back in the same place. I ended up racking up thousands of dollars in debt because I was just like trying to buy equipment on credit cards and trying to do all this stuff in order to buy my happiness and self-belief and self-worth. And I just really didn't know what to do with all of these problems that I was facing. And at this point in my career, I was doing this project called 12 Songs in 12 Weeks. So I wrote 12 songs in 12 weeks. And actually one of the journalists from the Herald Sun actually found me through a person that they knew that was talking to me about me. So this photo was in the Herald Sun in 2010. And basically on the outside, it looked like I was doing all this really cool, crazy stuff. But internally, I was just like, I can't do this. And I was just this emotional roller coaster of up and down, up and down. So I just kept hitting this glass ceiling that I just couldn't ever feel like I was going to break through. And so a bit of background around that as well is I was working sort of part-time as a music teacher, and I was making maybe 35 to 40 grand a year. And at that stage, I'd already had a music degree, and I had a diploma of education. So I had all these qualifications, but my life was just not moving anywhere. It just felt like I was on Groundhog Day, going around and around in circles, even though I was doing some pretty cool stuff. But to me, it just felt like I wasn't going anywhere. All right, so when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so, I like Star Wars. So basically, I was going through this frustration. I didn't know how to solve this problem. So I met a mentor, and he basically sat me down and said, Brett, it doesn't matter how much music you play. It doesn't matter where you travel in the world. It doesn't matter how much music that you buy. You've got this internal conflict. And so I was like, okay, cool. I don't know what that means. And so basically he started to educate me about how to process all of my emotions. And what that did was really change the way that I saw the world, and actually started to help me value myself and have self-worth, and actually start to create a business around my skills. So what I learned in those programs between 2011 and 2012, I invested, I think, about $8,000 in personal development seminars and coaches and mentors in order to help me. So I learned how to have high quality relationships. So he taught me about how relationship dynamics work. And that was intimate relationships, and also personal and professional relationships with friends and colleagues. He taught me how to communicate with other professionals and actually really find ways of actually making win-wins. I started my own business teaching music. Now I've taught over 400 students. Probably more it's probably more than that now. And obviously, before I mentioned that I've got 130 students pre-COVID, and we've got 4 team members. So I've actually got this ability to manage a team because I have a value and self-worth in my business. And I learned how to trust myself and not let anyone else take control of my dreams and goals. And I finally had a message that was more important than me. So I was this person trying to get on stage and trying to do everything. And basically it was all about me. It was like, look at me, trying to get this thing out of the world that every time I tried to do something crazier and crazier and crazier, I ended up back in the same boat, same thing. Is anyone sort of in the chat box, is any of this resonating with you? And my self-worth is no longer tied up in my music. So when my music was going well, there was like these little periods. I was like, yeah, everything's going mad. And then then music wasn't going so well, and then yeah, I just feel depressed. And yeah, I learned how to master my mental health. So I was always emotionally volatile, up, down, up, down, up, down, in, out, right, wrong, good, bad. Yeah, really inconsistent and just always emotionally volatile. So what I also learned is that I couldn't solve the problems using the same thinking that created them. This is a really beautiful quote by Albert Einstein. So I had this belief that if I just worked harder, wrote better songs, created projects, I'd eventually break through and I'd be famous. And because I saw my dad do everything himself, and I never ever saw him reach out for help or get mentoring or get a business coach or any of these things. I didn't even know any of these things existed. I basically thought subconsciously that if I was asking for help, then I was going to be a failure. And so there was part of me that felt like I had to do, like I saw my dad do all of this stuff, and I just had him on this pedestal that he was this amazing human being. And if I went and did something that he didn't do, I would be considered a failure. And this was all happening subconsciously, which we'll get into a little bit later on. So basically, yeah, so I wanted to know what these problems were. And so basically I had asked for help, and then I studied with them for probably 2, 3, 4 years. So my big problem, this is a picture of me. This is 2010, probably before that. And you can see I've got rainbow colored nail polish on. And basically having a UDL in a spa, and I think I stole some shampoo and put it in the spa. I think it was the mum's shampoo, and I think she got pretty angry about that. Cool. So I had the knowledge, skills, and passion with music, but I was trying to be successful, trying to use that same thinking, like just do more stuff. So I was also trying to do everything myself. I was trying to write, sing, play, do all of the extra stuff myself. And in essence, I didn't really believe in myself, and I didn't have a toolkit to actually deal with my stuff, to actually help people and connect with people, to actually help me along the journey. And I just had this massive inner conflict. There was just this ongoing internal story that I couldn't deal with or bring to the surface and actually process. Cool. So what I realized was that so many others were having the same challenges. They didn't know how to turn their skills into income, or whatever level that you're at. So for some people that I speak to, it's about them just actually getting on stage, or it's about getting on using social media and actually just being consistent with posting things online and actually building that engagement. The income comes later from helping people. I didn't really know how to connect with other people, and I was just trying to get everyone on board and trying to manipulate them in a sense to become part of my project. But they weren't winning, and then there's part of that I was just trying to pay them, and then I wasn't making any money, and it was just so learning how to connect with people and find win-win scenarios. I didn't have a proven plan, something that actually works. And I was also trying to live life by someone else's rules. So there was part of me that was trying to, get a house and a good job and a partner and all of these things that socially are really valuable. But I just wanted to make music. So I didn't have a way of I want to have a nice house and all of those things as well now, but not at the sacrifice of making sure that I'm sustainable with my art and the things that I love to do. And obviously battling all these mental health challenges. And worrying about what everyone else thought, and just always comparing myself. That person's better than me, and this. Da, 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 da. All right, so yeah, here's 2010 and here's 2019. So you'll notice that the paint on my body went from my body to the painting in the background, and so just a completely different human being, and just being so much more centered and grounded with life, and actually enjoying the process of growth. And it's not just about me attention seeking all the time and trying to get something out of life that wasn't going to be there if I didn't have the responsibility and accountability. So now I want to be able to help people resolve these inner conflicts and be confident with themselves and do what you love. Cool. Help others. Okay. So any questions so far? Cool. You can jump on the mic if you want to jump on the mic if you feel more confident talking. If not, that's just punch it into the chat box. Charlie, you said, not sure. I'm not quite sure exactly what you said that in relation to. That's all good. All right, so basically that's why I created the Confident Musician system. So basically, I didn't understand what the rules of the game were. I didn't understand principles and laws that actually govern everything that I experience in the world, and also that everyone else experiences in the world. So the other thing that I didn't have was understanding what mindset cues were, and actually understanding what my body and physiology and mindset and emotions are trying to actually teach me in order to help me move forward. Then I didn't have a mindset tool or toolkit to be able to process that information to be able to move forward with my life. And I also now understand that having someone to actually teach me and guide me and inspire me along that journey is actually incredibly important as well. So having a team of people to actually help me move through all my challenges. So we're going to talk about all of these 4 elements today in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to give you some really cool practical stuff that you can take away and actually start to implement in your lives straight away. We might even get to do a little bit of it today. Cool. So just a couple of client journeys from some people that have worked with me in the past. So Susie, I felt like I'd forgotten who I was, and Brett helped me to allow myself permission to follow my dream of becoming a musician. And she's smashing it now. So she's, pumping out music flat out. And she's also got 4 kids. And so she's a mum of 4, and she's, in her 30s and still making music, late 30s. I'm not sure exactly sure. Ooh, shouldn't have said that. So she's making a real difference and pumping out consistent music, which is really cool. And this is Jess. And so before working with me, she lacked confidence to be herself, being a mum of 3, and she felt stuck in the mundane. And the cool thing about this is I'm also one of 3 boys, and so now, just down the bottom there, she's now more equipped to handle challenges, especially time management and doing things for herself. And the beautiful part about that is that now her kids are actually starting to step out of their comfort zone and actually make a difference in their lives. So she's just leading by example, which is really cool. Cool. So I'm sure you get the idea that what I'm going to share with you today is completely opposite to what everyone else is teaching. Or, maybe if you're further along your journey, maybe you've started to learn a few of these things. But for today, only just park any learning outside the door and just be as fun and use discernment. So discernment just means that there's going to be certain things in here that you're either not ready for yet or don't make sense to you. So basically, you're going to be the best. You're your best coach, and you're the best person to understand this information. So discernment just means take what makes sense to you and put it into action, and whatever doesn't make sense to you, that's cool too. Just park it with your other information that doesn't make sense. Okay, so I just want to point this out too. That I'm definitely not the greatest musician, but I'm in the last 10 years I've mastered this process and science behind solving all of these internal conflicts and helping others become confident musicians. I love some music and I still make music, but this is where my love really lies in actually helping people transcend all of this stuff. And I so wish that my parents understood this information. I so wish my school teachers understood this information, because my journey probably would have avoided most of the stuff that I went through in my 20s, because I would have been focused on building a business around my music. All right, so what is a confident musician? Type it in the chat box what you think a confident musician is. What does it mean to you? What does a confident musician mean to you? Or you can come off mute and share too, if you can raise your hand. Someone who is grounded. Yeah, awesome. Grounded. Yep, like a tree. Grounded, but also reaching to the sky. That's cool, like that one. All right, so a confident musician is someone who really values who they are and values their contribution to the world. And so self-worth plus other worth equals true net worth. So when you value and understand what you bring to the world, the rest of the world's going to value that. And if you create, songs and whatever that serve other people, and you value that process, that means you increase in your true net worth. So you value who you are and what you bring to the table. You've got a purpose to help other people. So your mission and vision for your life is greater than just your own interests. And money only comes in to the degree that you can serve the most amount of people. So when you flip it, when you start to understand that life is about people, and you're not in the music industry, you're in the people industry, and once you've got a purpose to really, truly help others, that's way more important than you, that's when you can stay focused on stuff, which is really cool. And they are someone who leads, guides, and inspires others. And there's a reason why musicians are on a stage that's slightly elevated, and we have microphones in order to be louder than everyone else. And so once we really connect your value and who you are and the purpose beyond, your own life or whatever it is, and you can actually be there and hold space for people to have their own growths and breakthroughs and whatever it is, and inspire them with your beautiful art, that's something that's pretty inspirational. Cool. All right. So let's get into this confident musician system. So what we're going to talk about now is sort of all these steps in the process of actually understanding what's actually happening, so we can actually change what's happening in our life, so we can actually move forward with confidence. So a mindset rule is basically a universal law as applied to human behavior. And once I started learning all this information around human behavior and universal laws, I was just so fascinated. So is there anyone in the group today that was always wandering around going, I'm destined to do something great with my life? Something inside me is calling me to do something amazing. So in the chat box, if that sounds like you, please, let us know what that might be. All right. So if you've never learnt about a universal law before or understood the whole concept of human behavior, I'm going to explain it in a little more detail for you now. If you've got any questions, please just bear with me. If it's new and confronting information, just stick with me and it'll start to make sense as we go throughout today. Okay, so a universal law is something that governs all of humanity to the same degree. So what that means is that if it doesn't make sense to one person and the next person and the next person, then it's not a universal law. So a universal law is something that exists for everybody in exactly the same way. And so once I started learning about this, I was like, nah, that can't be right. So I've spent the last 10 years making sure that all of these principles and laws actually stand up, and they stand the test of time, and they work every time. Once we start to understand this information, it gives us more confidence in ourselves and certainty in who we are, because it works every time. And then once you actually get the ball rolling with that and the momentum rolling with that, it just gives you the ability to overcome any hurdle, because you know that there's something there that works every time. So some examples of that are the law of gravity. So if anyone on the face of the earth jumps up, they're going to be brought back down with gravity. And so the law of conservation. So the law of conservation is an energetic law that basically means that nothing is ever gained or lost. It just transforms. So basically that exists in everything for everyone. So if you lose something over here, you're going to gain it somewhere over here in another sense. So I'm not going to go into any of these in too much more detail, but if you've got any questions, yes, I've always known it was music, but didn't know how to act upon it. All right, cool. We're going to have some game-changing information for you too today, Charlie, that's for sure. The law of the one and the many basically means that from the one comes the many, and from the many back towards the one. So some examples of that is like when you're in relationships. If you're in a relationship with the one, you're then wondering about the many. If you're single and looking at the many, wondering about the one. From the one community has the one leader, and then the leader talks to the many, and from the many back to the one. So the more you're closer to the one in your life, and your one mission and your one purpose and your one identity as who you are, and have that clarity with yourself, the more you attract the many. So basically the more you're more the many, with more distracted, fractured parts of your psychology or life or whatever is, the more disordered you are, the less you sort of repel the many. So you're sort of looking for the one in that sense. Yeah. If you're curious about any of this stuff, I can send you to. I understand I can play guitar, but I don't know how to build a guitar, if that makes sense. So I understand this information. But if you've got any questions, I'll send you to somewhere that's much better at explaining these than me. The law of learning to handle what you've got. So in a sense, what this means is that once you learn how to handle whatever level that you're at, you get promoted to the next level because you're emotionally able to handle the level that you're at. So you can't run until you've learned how to walk, and you can't walk until you've learned how to crawl. And so it's the same thing. Once I learn how to master, serving a room of 10 people in a gig, then I get promoted to 20 people. Then I get promoted to 30 people. And if I never ever transcend my emotional ability to handle and service 30 people in a room, I'm probably not going to feel confident to move to the next level. So this is the law of learning to handle what you've got. Cool. And you've probably, I don't know, some people out there might have experienced this with, you might have got, or someone might have gifted you something that was it's really either expensive or something like that, or you might have got an inheritance. And so basically, if you're not emotionally able to handle whatever it is that you've got with that in that scenario, you'll basically squander it down to a level that you're actually emotionally able to handle it. So learning to handle whatever you have right now that's your focus, because then you get to handle the next level. Cool. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and how that works. Cool. And the law of balance and homeostasis. So we're going to talk a little bit about that now. All right. So all of life is balanced in some way. And it also has a calling to homeostasis, which means that if it's out of balance, it wants to come back to balance. And your ability to manage that inside your body and outside your body also helps you move through these levels, if that makes sense. And they're basically emotional maturities, or what we call spheres of influences. So if we have a look here, we've got this line through the middle, which is balance. And so with everything that I explain, we're always trying to get back to balance. This vertical 45-degree angle line here is a positive emotion or perception, and this line here is a negative emotion or perception. And so what we're going to look and learn about today is this thing called a negative feedback loop. And so when I learnt about this principle, I have this friend, whose name I won't mention, but basically he would always, if anyone's a bit confused about where we're going, I'm going to bring this back to music in a second. He would always be putting me down, like, why do you have to do that? What are you doing? What are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why is this? Why is that? And I was like, man, why do you have to always be bugging me all the time and putting me down? And he's like, I'm just trying to keep your feet on the ground. And so when I learned about this principle of negative feedback loops, which is basically something that occurs either inside you or outside of you that actually brings you back into balance, I just burst into tears. And I was like, oh my God, he's just trying to keep me balanced. And I was this really flighty human being, everything's fine, everything's cool, blah, 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 blah. And I was driving and I just burst into tears and started laughing. I was like, oh my God, he's just loving me. And then once I learned this little piece of information, my life was never the same, because I knew that there was something out there in the universe or in the world that was perfectly designed, or what we call the divine order, this underlying force, if you will, from Star Wars, that actually just keeps you in balance in order to help keep you on track with what it is that you're working towards. So, I was very flighty, drinking and partying and doing all this crazy stuff. And he was just there loving me, and he was kind of took over the role of my mum in a sense, because that's what my mum used to do to me. So basically what we're doing here is starting to learn how our physiology and our world outside us also is always trying to give us this negative feedback loop. And you'll also notice that we've got this positive perception or elation or fantasy, and then a negative feedback loop is something that brings us back into homeostasis or balance. And then if we have a negative emotion or perception, a negative feedback loop in this case is something that brings us back into balance. So an example of a negative emotion may be I'm depressed, I'm frustrated, I'm annoying, I'm this. And then your friend comes around and says, hey, you're not that bad after all. you're actually really good at this. Do this, do that, and help. I can help you. So this is what we call a negative feedback loop. But what we want to learn today is how to actually become a negative feedback loop for ourselves, so that we're not always relying on these external sources in order to help keep us in check and in balance. And as we go through today, I'll explain a little bit more about why this is important in relation to building this positive mindset. So it's kind of funny when you think about it. The whole idea of positive thinking is actually ridiculous, because you actually want to have negative thinking to always be reversing whatever emotions you're experiencing, whatever perceptions you're experiencing in the world. So if I'm feeling sad, I'm like, what am I doing good? What's going well at the moment? Because I want to basically move myself back into balance and homeostasis as quickly as I possibly can, rather than have to ring my friend and say, oh, life sucks. Can you please hold my hand? So my job as a mindset coach is actually just to help my clients make sure that they're always bringing their emotions back into check and actually looking out into the future or into the past and actually trying to balance out any of these lopsided perceptions. So once I learned this information, it was a game changer. And that's why I'm here today talking about this, because of this exact moment in my life 10 years ago where I was driving in my car and I just burst into tears and started laughing. And when you start to get this, there's part of you that goes, life is actually helping me and actually moving me forward. And it just helped me trust in life and it just enabled me to move through all of these challenges that I was facing. Cool, interesting, confusing. Who's got any questions? Cool, so this is Jacob, very much like myself. He was in his last teens when he was working with me a couple of years ago. And so basically, he was just struggling with feeling lonely all the time and frustrated, and he was just emotionally volatile all the time. So now he just knows and understands what his value is and what his values are. And last I checked, he's starting to make some really cool content around helping people record themselves at home and mixing and mastering and that sort of stuff too, which is really cool. I had hair then too, that was exciting. Cool, so a little piece of the puzzle here is that anything that you can't be grateful for is baggage. So if you've got emotions and feelings and frustrations that are coming out, they basically just weigh you down and they make your life hard and heavy and frustrated. So gratitude and being grateful for the challenges that you experience actually enables you to move through whatever challenges you're facing. So the second piece of that puzzle is that anything you can be grateful for is fuel. So as you start to experience all of these, positive and negative emotions, and you're not actually grateful for the responsibility and accountability that they give you, you're basically it just weighs you down. So like, who's ever got a new piece of gear, or, for the parents out there who's had a kid and be like, oh my God, kids, yay, woohoo, and then realize, oh my God, what have I done? And then you're like, doesn't matter, in the future when they're teenagers, it'll be fine. And then you're all of a sudden like, oh my God, what have I done? So a positive fantasy or elation is exactly the same as a depression, in a sense that it moves you out of certainty for who you are and makes, whenever I've got a fantasy with something that I'm going to experience in the future, I'm like, what are all the downsides to this? Because I don't want to ever value this experience in the future that's more important than me being certain and present and grateful for my life right now. Because I know that if I'm living in fantasy land, always projecting into the future, thinking that my life's going to get easier or better when when I get a certain amount of money or a certain amount of students or clients, I know that's going to make my life harder as I learn to grow and manage those skills. So when I'm here now, present, I can enjoy my coffee and touch things and experience life and be like, oh wow, that feels really beautiful, and actually be present. Which is definitely not where I was before, because I was always like, I need to get the next thing, I need to get the next thing, I need to get the next thing. All right, so mindset cues. So a mindset cue and learning to understand what's actually happening for you is some internal feedback to help you move forward. So once you start to interpret all this information, what I do with my clients is basically they tell me what's happening and I go, cool, how is this actually helping you? And then we can actually start to process the information. So the most important information here is that when you're, I lost my train of thought. When you're experiencing an emotion, it's actually there to let you know that you're not okay with something. And so what we do is, so basically that information or that emotion is actually getting in the way of you actually pressing play on the trigger or the whatever it is. So the most important thing to understand here is that you can only control three things: your perception, your decisions, and your actions. And so if you've got a perception of something in the future that you're worried about, you're probably not likely to make decisions in that direction, and you're probably not likely to take actions in that direction. So once you change the perception of something, you can then take action on it, or you make different decisions and you'll take actions, and you actually do them with certainty, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I should have to, got to do that sort of stuff. And so basically what I'm sharing with you here is that whatever's in the way of the task is the task. And so all of this mindset stuff just helps you pull the trigger on all of the things that you'd love to do, because you have certainty and you're not afraid of something bad happening in the future without seeing that it's got some benefits, some hidden benefits associated to it as well. Okay, so a mindset cue is an emotion either perceived positive or negative, are just letting you know that you're out of balance. And that is just there to help you. And so once we start to get this understanding of our world, that actually everything that's happening inside us is actually there to help us, and changing that information and the response to that, then we can actually really start to make changes in our life. And, I'm not a medical doctor. And so if you are, you do need professional help in that space, please seek it out. But if you are it's just stopping you from doing whatever level that you're at, and you need help to do that, then this stuff is really going to make a difference. Okay, so fears, future emotions appearing real. Who's been terrified of something and then done it and like, oh, that wasn't so bad after all? Or then also knowing, oh, wow, that's cool. I didn't realize that would happen, and that happened, and that happened. So this is the same with everything that you experience. So a future emotion appearing real. Frustration, if you're not moving forward with something, these are just cues to let us know something. Anxiety, depression, fantasies. The fantasies are a really fascinating one. So the whole idea of a fantasy is that you're projecting into the future that it only has one side that's only good, or you only perceive the positive sides of things that are going to happen to you. But once you understand that that is also an incomplete truth, that gives you a bit of certainty in going, okay, cool, it doesn't matter if I do this or not, because I know that I'm going to have a next level of responsibility and accountability to grow. Cool. Infatuation. When you infatuate with either another human being or buying a new piece of equipment, or yourself when you're on stage and doing all this really cool stuff, that also has some equivalent downsides. Resentment of another person. So yeah, if you're resentful of anyone, it's just because that you're actually resentful of who you are as a person. So these are all cues to let us know that we have some inner work to do in order to love and appreciate part of ourselves so we can move forward. And as you love and appreciate all of the good and bad parts of yourself, you're not worried about someone else pointing them out to you, because you appreciate who you are. And you're a whole human being with every single trait in some way, shape or form. So as you start to learn this stuff, you can actually give yourself permission to move to the next level. And a good example of that is my partner is terrified of being, well, she's not terrified of being silly, but as a kid, she was told, stop being silly, that's stupid, stop being silly, that's stupid. And so those key words inside her, stop her from actually enjoying her life, because she doesn't want to feel to be silly or stupid. So now we're actually processing that stuff, and I'm like, thank you for being silly. So, you're fun to be around. And thank you for being stupid and allowing me to feel smart so that I can actually help you and teach you something. So, these are different ways of seeing the world, and seeing these cues are actually ways in order to help us. Cool? Who's having fun? Learning? If you've learned anything, thanks Louise, I love the thumbs up. That's cool. If anything's interesting, just say, wow, that's cool. Or if you need help with anything, or you want me to explain something, just put it in the chat box, or just unmute your mic. I'm happy to chat with only 3 people. That's pretty easy to do. All right, so Mandy was frustrated and angry with herself, and she didn't understand that she had these blockers, and now she can see how much she's grown and can really see how the system works. So she had a really challenging childhood with some really challenging moments, which I'm not going to go into. She held on to these challenges from for 40 years since she was a little kid. and basically her perception was that she was not worthy of love, and as a direct result of this, we had to do some processing and work on some of her childhood traumas in order to help her see that because this happened to her, she became this amazing person who looks after everyone. And out of her 4 sisters, she's the one that is the one that everyone comes to, and she's like this amazing friend, and she's not afraid of all these people in her world, and that most people in her position might have been challenged in her profession. And she ended up becoming this person that just really, makes a real difference in the world. Now she's retired and she's not financially stressed in her later years. So she's actually very grateful for these challenges that she experienced when she was really young. So we had some fun uncovering that stuff. So, all right, cool. So now we want to get into this tool. Like, how do we process this stuff? Because if we understand the mindset rule, and then we understand the cue, but we don't actually have a tool to deal with it and actually process this information, we're gonna still come out of the other side and say, hey bro, that doesn't work. So you need to actually have a tool to actually process that. So I'm gonna actually teach you one today so you can actually use it with whatever you've got, any challenges you might have coming up. So basically a tool is to help you achieve that internal balance or homeostasis in your mind. And once you've got a balanced mind, your physiology starts to follow. And once I started learning about that, I was like, that's fascinating. So when I've got dis-ease or pain or chronic challenges in my body, I'm like, how is my mind out of balance? And how is this actually here to help me? And what's this teaching me? And how is this actually helping me? So this has fundamentally changed the way that I experience the world, so that I can actually take responsibility and accountability for what's happening to me, no matter what. So I'm in lockdown at the moment, but I'm actually really excited because I'm doing all this stuff and learning how to do more streaming and lives and personal development and speaking and educating people. So my business, collapsed over here, but I was like, wow, cool. What else is happening over here? So I had the ability to actually transition and pivot. So now I've got a whole new set of skills, which is really cool because I've got tools and I apply them. All right. So to help me achieve internal balance and move forward with certainty. All right. So you've got a gig coming up, or you're about to, maybe do an open mic, which is Louise was talking about. Cool, Tapucci, thanks. That's cool. Confident musician to me is someone who's grounded. Yes, I've always known it was music, but I didn't know how to act upon it. All right, cool. Hopefully this is starting to be some cool information for you, Charlie. Just remember too, I've got a really cool bonus for everyone towards the end of today, which is basically some really cool stuff. So if you're curious about that, I'll be explaining that towards the end. All right, so you've got a gig coming up. What are some experiences or emotions or feelings that you might be facing with this gig coming up? And what's something that might be for you, Charlie? Like if you're nerves. All right, cool. So you're experiencing nerves. Cool. So this is a mindset cue. Nerves are letting us know. And so what then happens to do with the nerves? What do you do? Practice to dull them. Yeah, that's cool. Be prepared. Yep. Trying to calm it down. Yeah, cool. How does that work? Does that then become an enjoyable experience, or is it still like, ah? And he's like stressing and like, oh, I'm not good enough. It's not prepared enough. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. Ah. Yeah, so you've got a gig coming up. You might be experiencing worry about, who might come. You might be experiencing that you're not good enough. You might be experiencing that you haven't practiced enough. You might be experiencing that your new song isn't finished yet. You might be experiencing that what happens if someone that you admire comes and videos it and then puts it on the internet and then tells everyone that you're terrible. I might be being a little bit mean and poking in some insecurities here, but that's part of the process. Cool. So you've got this gig coming up. So what I'm going to teach you here is actually part of my toolkit, which I share with all my clients, which is called a future fears processing. So basically what we're going to do here is actually start to find negative feedback loops in order to balance out all of these perceptions. Because it's not just one perception, right? It's not just one thing that you're worried about. It's actually a whole bunch of stuff. Am I good enough? Is my new song's not finished? Have I practiced enough? Where's the event? I need some new equipment. I've got to restring my guitar. Who's going to be there? What happens if no one else turns up? What happens if people laugh at me? What happens if I break a string? Or all of these things, right? So what we're going to do here is actually just process this information. And so what happens inside your body when you're trying to process this information is that you think some way. So an idea pops into your head. And then basically what happens is your brain actually creates a feeling and then sends chemicals into your body, and then you start feeling the same way that you're thinking. And then because you're feeling that way, what happens to your thinking? Do you go, nope, that's fine. Yay. Do you start then thinking the way you're feeling? And then you start feeling the way you're thinking, and then thinking the way you're feeling. And then it's just on downward spiral of anxiety and fear and depression and frustration and angst and your probably bodies are actually starting to feel what I'm talking about, right? And so you actually don't even have a gig coming up. Or maybe you do, and I'm just like bringing up this stuff. So what we need to be able to do here is actually to use this tool to process these informations and bring our ideas and bring our psychology back into homeostasis or balance. So what happens is you grow most on the border of support and challenge. So at the moment, when we're thinking about this future fear, this future emotion appearing real, we're experiencing more challenge than support. So we've got these skills and we've been working on it and we're kind of okay, but there's more negatives in your perception stacked up than there is positives. Cool, so we're experiencing like more negative emotion, and negative emotions are always more powerful than positive ones. So here's what we're going to do. This is what we do. So basically with my clients, if they're new to this process, I'm going to guide them, inspire them through this and actually help them figure out what to do. Cool. So step one is that what is that you're most afraid of coming true? And what we're going to do here is go to the most extreme examples and just list everything that you're afraid of coming true. Now this step is really important because it just helps get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. You can even do this as a video. And just get the information out of you. So what this does, it just helps you stop thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling, because you can actually process and get it out of you. So you can actually look at it and go, oh, that's not me. That's just some stuff that I'm thinking. Cool. And for beginners, maybe it's a bit tough. Like learning a C chord, it's not like you learned where to put your fingers when you first started learning, or a piano. You don't just learn where your fingers are and it's perfect the first go. So it requires support and correcting of the ship and learning and understanding the stuff, because the process is simple, but the human being is complex. So you've got all these emotions and you're probably going to experience some negativity, or you're going to experience some emotions that actually make you want to move away from the actual process. Because what's actually happening inside you is that there's this animal part of your thinking that actually is always looking for a fight or flight response. So your brain's primary purpose is to keep you safe and conserve calories. So doing something like this when you're starting out at the moment is actually hard and confusing. So what happens is you just don't do it. So because it's actually you perceive that it's actually going to make you feel even worse. So my job as a mindset coach is actually just to hold people's hands and make sure that they understand the cues and have the tool, and then understand the rules so that they've got this certainty with the process, and then also have someone to actually hold their hand through that. Cool. So what is it that you're most afraid of coming true? So you might be like, I might make a mistake. My string might break. No one will come. Too many people will come. I'm not good enough. My song's not finished. I don't know where the venue is. Someone might be better than me there. I might be comparing myself to someone else. So basically start to get all the stuff out. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So now this is where the negative feedback loop starts to come in. Cool. So we're experiencing all this stuff, and now we're either experiencing them as most of these are going to all be negative perceptions. Cool, because we're afraid of them coming true. So basically, we want to make sure here that we are basically starting to look for all of the benefits of this coming true. So say too many people turn up. This is probably not a good one to start with. Too many people turning up means that lots of people are going to see you, and the percentage of people liking, or the number of people potentially going to like you, is probably greater. So you might actually sell some CDs, or you might actually, find more people that are actually interested in what it is that you do. Okay, that's not a good one to start with. You break a string. So the benefits of you breaking a string is someone might come in to support you and just let them borrow your guitar. So you actually make a connection, and people love to help people that are stressed out or broken. If like the last performance I was at was ages ago, and someone's like, I don't have a pick, and I like jumped onto the stage and handed them a pick, and then they got off the stage like, oh, thanks so much, you gave me a pick. And I wish I had like a branded pick that had my name on it, which I do now, to hand them. And I was like, it's yours. My band's name's Meglove. Follow me on Instagram. And okay, what else do we say? My song's not finished. So the benefits of that coming true, or people not liking my new song, is that they'll see that, it's all about growth and progress and consistency. And some people might relate to that, and there might be someone just like you in the audience who, is afraid of getting up and singing because they don't think their songs are finished, and you get up in there and do that, and that's going to help them. Cool. Louise, how can I help?
Yeah, can I just ask, what would be the benefits of something like, one of my worst fears is making a mistake, or worse than that, my hand shaking and not being able to hit a chord or something like that?
So
what are the benefits?
So who do you think is going to lose there, you or the audience?
Well, both of us, I think.
Huh? So, like, you've probably in this my presentation, you've probably noticed that I've made mistakes. There's spelling errors. What else? I didn't start quite on time. There's a bunch of things that were probably not in the presentation that probably weren't supposed to be in there. So the benefits of you making a mistake is that you become more relatable. And so people after the performance are like, Louise is cool. She's human. Because when you put on the magic show and everything's perfect, people are just intimidated by that. It's like, whoa, this person is like out of my league. So it makes you more relatable and more approachable, and people might come up to you, and people buy stuff, or people want to interact with people that are like them. So everyone has mistakes, and so yeah, the audience is going to feel relatable to you, and for you, it's going to give you some feedback that lets you know that you haven't practiced enough. So that would just inspire you post gig to make sure that you can really play that chord. It might also inspire you to reach out to a guitar teacher to actually say, hey, maybe I could do this better. Cool. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. And so so basically you've got an internal balance meter. And so these emotions are just letting you know, right? So as you stack up more benefits to that fear, you're basically goes, zhup, and I make mistakes all the time, and I just laugh about them. And when I teach my beginners about what I call mistake face, is that professionals make mistakes, and the only difference between a beginner and a professional is that they don't make mistake face. So when I make a mistake, I look across the room and I like look at the guy on the stage with me, and I'm like, "What's up?" And the audience is like, "I thought I heard a mistake, but no one's making a mistake face, so maybe my ears are wrong."
Yeah.
And so yeah, as you start to stack up all these benefits, it's just part of the process of learning, and you're only going to get better through putting yourself in those environments. Make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Great question. Awesome question. But yeah, this is what my process is, right? Like I said before, the exercise is super simple, and it works every single time as long as you know what to do and when. So that's what my job is. Like, that's what I needed at the start. Like, I needed someone to actually guide me and make sure that I was doing it correctly, because the process is simple, but the human being is complex. But yeah, always just trying to come back to balance. Cool. All right. Next up. So this is a really powerful question, which is, what will I no longer have to do if my fear comes true? And how is this aligned with my highest values? So we haven't looked at values today, but values is basically my priority list. So for me, my highest values are human behavior, music, education, inspiring people. So all the things that are important to me. Cool. So you could change that for now before you actually figure out what they are, just to me and my vision or whatever it is that I love the most. What will I no longer have to do if my fear comes true? So if your fear comes true and you make a mistake on stage, let's use that example, you won't have to worry about it coming true anymore. And it's like, it's happened, I didn't die, great, you can move on. And you'll probably laugh and say, oops, I missed that. And there'll be people who come up to you afterwards and be like, hey, that was really cool. You don't need to tell us when you make a mistake, we already know. And it just makes you more relatable and more approachable. So what will you no longer have to do if your fear comes true? And how is that more aligned with your highest value? So, you get to be free, or you get to be inspirational, or you get to tell a joke or make it funny. And if you're a funny person and you get to tell a joke and you love making people laugh, that's great. And you're an entertainer. So you're there to entertain people, and it's not about perfection, it's about an act of love. Cool. All right, so I love this. This is my favorite one. So basically what we do here is, what will be the drawbacks to you if that fear doesn't come true? So what we're doing here is we're perceiving that something is only negative. Cool? So if it was the opposite, a positive experience, for instance, where I don't make any mistakes, what will be the downside of me having a perfect performance? And so this is basically, we're flipping the whole story to helping you look at, if it was perfect, how would I lose? And so if everything that I did, if I was in an immaculately dressed suit and I shaved my head this morning, so that's why I'm wearing a hat, and I, presented everything with laser precision, and I didn't make any mistakes and fumble, and do all of these things, you might be watching this going, wow, this guy is amazing and just does everything perfectly. And then there's part of you that's like, well, I could probably never be like that. I'd be too perfect. So the drawbacks to me of delivering this flawless presentation, which, is my goal, to move towards that, so that you have certainty that I can actually help you. But it makes me, potentially, I might repel some people because I'm not relatable, and I'm not, you can't connect with me because you can't see the human element to what it is that I do. So yeah, I would be, unrelatable. I might create a scenario where people are just so infatuated with me that it's like, I can't deal with that. Yeah, cool. Louise, you got another question?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Oh, lower hand.
Is my hand still up? Do I need to put it down?
That's all right. I got it. Cool. Thanks. Is this all making sense, everybody? You can either turn off your mic and share, or come on camera, or type it in the chat box, trying to calm it down. So we don't have to try anymore. Totally makes sense. Awesome. Yeah, so you don't have to try anything more. This process works every single time. And so now, if you've got all these nerves, a healthy amount of nerves is important because it makes sure that you do things, it's just letting you know that you're out of your comfort zone. So you need that. If you're not getting that emotional feedback where you're not nervous about something, some of my worst performances when I come in, I'm like, nah, I got this. Practice last week, it's all good. And my performances are horrible because I'm not afraid of not doing well. And so, because I know that that's now a future fantasy where I'm looking into the future, which is another tool that I have. Me having a perfect gig, not doing any practice. And so the questions obviously with that are flipped. So we would have, what are the downsides of my, crazy fantasy coming true, my unrealistic fantasy coming true. Yeah. So I would basically set myself up where I don't think I need to practice ever again. And so it's like gambling, the first time you start gambling and you're like, woohoo, this is the best. I won $300. I literally won $300 the first time I went gambling in the city. And the next 10 times, I think I just lost. So it's like they had cameras on me, and they heard me talking. It's the first time I'm going gambling, and it's like they rigged the table. So you want to make sure that you're processing any of those fantasies. I just laugh now when I buy something new and it doesn't fit on my desk, and I'm updating my studio at the moment, and it doesn't fit, or it doesn't work, or it turns up late, or I get it and it doesn't, needs to go back or whatever. I'm just like, nah, or scratch a new guitar. All right, last question in this series is, so this is a sort of a two-part question. I'll just do it slowly and I'll explain it. So with the future fear, what drawback do I believe this will give me? So say making a mistake with my chords, cool, on the gig. Where do you already have that, and what are its benefits? So at the moment, you're leading up to the gig, you have your practice session, and you just can't play this chord correctly. So what we do here is, instead of pushing out into the future and projecting all of this nervous energy and fear and crazy, lopsided perceptions and anxiety and whatever else, it just brings me to the present, and I'm making these mistakes in my chords now. And so the benefits of that is that it makes you want to practice it more, and it helps you let go of the whole idea that it needs to be perfect. And it just helps you be relatable, and you can post about it on Facebook and say, hey guys, I've got a gig coming up, but I just can't play this chord yet. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get it. And then people are like, good luck, keep going. And as I said before, we're in the people business, not the music industry. So as you start to reach out and connect with people, they believe in you, and you let them know that you're a human being. I love I'm reading Elton John's Me biography at the moment. And I just love it because it's making him so relatable. He's just got an absolutely unbelievable story. But yeah, like, so amazingly talented and so horribly flawed. I'm just like, oh, that's like me. And it's awesome. He's just telling it brutally. Like, he was friends with Elton John before he died. Yoko Ono wanted him to finish this whole bunch of songs that he'd finished, and he's like, no, I can't do that. It's Elton John. No way. I mean, it's John Lennon. Too many Johns in there. All right, cool. All right, so basically that toolkit is in the Confident Musician group. Oops, let me lock my headphones off. So if you've tried to log on, I haven't let you in yet, but I will. Charlie, I got you. Yeah, so in the files, there is music. It's called Music and Mindset, Future Fears. And there's another one there, Future Fantasies, which we won't go over today. All right, cool. So here's Joel. I was actually, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was right into CrossFit and fitness and all these things. I actually wanted to be a mindset coach for athletes. So he's actually someone that I met through the gym. So he's actually not a musician. But yeah, he didn't feel like he had any direction and didn't know his worth. And now he has a more direct path, and I wish he did it sooner. So yeah, he was just this guy who just wanted to do all these crazy things. He did 3 marathons in a day, one on a running, one on a rower, and one on this thing called a ski erg. And then he did this thing called 24 workouts in 24 hours. So he did a workout every hour on the hour for 24 hours. And we sat down and we just helped him realize that he just kept doing these crazier and crazier things, but there was no real way he was actually turning that into, a business, and actually making it sustainable. So he just kept doing this crazier and crazy stuff. And he's like, man, I just have all these fantasies now. Now I just look at him and go, what are all the downsides? And he just doesn't do as many of them anymore. So he's actually just looking after his body, which is really cool. All right. So as I said before, you get the tools. Join me on Facebook, The Confident Musician, and it's in the files. Cool. And basically what I do with my clients is I set them up with a Google Drive, and basically you have every single tool in there. And as we go through the educational process and support, you basically have someone there you basically have this, you can process everything that you've gone through: addiction, issues with your relationship, positive perceptions, negative perceptions. I've done stuff with dealing with, childhood trauma and all this past baggage stuff. So as soon as we get your mind into balance with those things, your growth just starts to skyrocket. Cool. All right, we're nearly drawing to the end today. So any questions so far? Alrighty. So the last piece of the puzzle is a mindset coach. So as I've explained all of this stuff along the way, is that it's actually quite difficult to do straight off the bat. So I want to teach you and guide you and make sure that you're educated by it. So when you're either looking for a mindset coach, I would love to work with you. You're an educated buyer and you're looking for someone that can give you this system so that you can actually move through things and actually get through the stuff. So basically I help people to write their own songs, get on stage, performance stuff, recording, mixing and learning how to record yourself at home, and building a community of people that can actually start to make businesses out of what it is that they do. So yeah, which is really cool. So so basically I want to make sure that you know what you're looking for and what you need, so that when you come to reach out to someone, you actually know what it is that you need. So yeah, someone to guide and inspire you on your journey to help you work the work. So basically starting to learn this stuff for me at the start, I was like, I don't know, it doesn't work. And then I went through a whole bunch of programs and I was like, ah. So basically I'm actually currently doing a series of sponsorships where I've actually, because I know that COVID and everyone's gone through some pretty tough times at the moment. So basically I've reduced my prices to 70% off. So what that means is that basically people can work with me, but they can not just work with me for 3 months, they can work with me for 6, 12, 9 months and beyond, so that they can actually make a real difference in the world and actually make a real change over a long period of time, as opposed to like working with me for 3 months and then like, all right, cool, I've got to go and try and do it all on my own. So like a music teacher, I want to make sure that you've got super cool tools to deal with all your stuff. Okay, cool. So just a little, so basically by implementing this stuff, this is your return on investment, or ROI, is just to have certainty in who you are, and actually, because you have a toolkit to deal with your stuff, you actually can move through more things more often and be more consistent and have that confidence in yourself, to be a bit more balanced. And consistency is the key here, because that's where confidence comes from, is basically being able to do the same thing over and over again until you just know that you can do it. And that's where real confidence comes from. It's not just something that magically appears after doing one gig. And to be that person who's inspirational for the people, just like the people who work for you. So what would you like me to tell you what kind of mistakes you're going to make moving forward with this? So you'll probably go and do whatever most people do and just try and do it all yourself. It'll get too hard and you give up and say, Brett, that thing that you taught me doesn't work. Which I know, it's like I said before, it's not fun and it's not easy, but it works. So having someone to support you through the process is a really important part of that. So you'll do exactly what I did and probably spend a year or the rest of your life trying to prove your skill set and keep hitting these glass ceilings. And so just to remind you that I did a music degree and a diploma of education, and I came out of that, I don't know what it was, like maybe 25 grand worth of study. And I came out of that and I looked around, I'm like, what do I do now? And I just didn't have skills to actually move my career forward, which was pretty frustrating. Not now I see it makes sense, but basically I went through and actually looked at just recently I went through and looked at my income over the last 10 years, and where I've actually invested in my own education, and got coaches and mentors and did programs. And there's direct correlation with where I've spent money. Like basically my music business in 2012 made, I think $3,000. And then in 2012 I spent $8,000, and then I made 20 grand, and then I made 40 grand the following year, and then I made 44, and then I made 60, and then I think I made, I don't know, something like that, 90 or something 3 or 4 years ago. But the point is that I can, by investing in and getting help and investing in my real education, that's where I've actually been able to see the results. And it's not even about the money, it's just about the fact that I'm actually really making a difference in like all these 130 kids getting to learn this information and stuff from me as well. And obviously my coaching clients. Cool. Some of you will dabble for a little and then probably do nothing. So this is, just a reminder, this is not a fun or easy process, but it works. Cool. I know we've covered a lot, but I've got a gift for you. As a token of my appreciation, I would love to gift you a breakthrough strategy session for free with me to help you along your journey, which is valued at $497. It's about 45 to 60 minutes with me to actually talk to you about what your vision is, what you'd love to be able to achieve, what's stopping you from getting there, and start to present a bit of a plan as to how you can actually start to make that happen. Cool, but there's a catch. Dun, dun, dun. I just love you to fill out some feedback, so you can let me know what worked really well today or what was interesting, to help you, and so I can make this even better for other musicians to help them on their journey. So I'm just going to put the link to that in the chat, and if you can fill that out, that would be awesome. Cool, just make sure I got the right link. Cool, so here's the link in the chat. Depending on whether you're one of those people that likes to really think about questions, yeah, you can. So yeah, I'd love to know what your feedback, what was interesting today, what you found valuable, what you got out of it. Cool. And yeah, Charlie, you were here to get some guidance in navigating the music industry without knowing where you're at. All of these tools basically are the processes in order to help you move along that journey. And then once your question, yeah, go for it, Charlie.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Nice. I just have a quick question about the homeostasis and the positive and negative emotion loops.
Yep.
What's a sign that you're in complete balance?
You're certain, present, grateful, loving.
Okay. And what are you talked a lot about the negative side of it. What about the positive side? What's a disadvantage to be on the positive side of that spectrum?
You make dumb decisions.
So it affects the decision-making process?
Yeah. So like I had a $5,500 PRS, and I had this fantasy of being this rock star. And so I was in my backyard with strap locks on it, and I was spinning it around my body like this. And so now when I look at stuff like ideas like that pop into my head, I'm like, what are all the downsides to this? So that basically just helps me get back into balance so I can actually get focused on things that are actually important, because no one cares whether I can do that, but they do care how I make them feel. So yeah, so the flip side of that is like I'm in a guitar store or something like. Did you say you're a guitarist?
No, I'm a singer actually.
Yeah, all right, cool. Not as big a deal for you, but I'm in a guitar shop and I'm playing this $6,500 PRS, another one, and not the first one. And I'm like, this is mad. And this thing pops into my head. I'm like, I wonder what the repayments are on this. And I'm just like really excited. But I'm wise enough to go, I'm actually like, hey, this is a really beautiful guitar. I'm just going to put it down. I'm going to go out to the car. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to process this. So I basically bring out my future fantasies list. What's the thing I'm worried about? What's the most excited thing I'm going to deal with? And so basically I just dunk. What are all the downsides to this? I'm going to have expensive. I work with a lot of kids. They're going to scratch it. I'm going to have to maintain it. I'm going to be worried about it getting stolen. I'm going to have to insure it. And so basically that's just bringing me back down into balance so that I can make a logical decision, not an emotional one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yep. Cool. And what was that sort of in relation to?
Oh, it's just you were talking a lot about how to get that balance and the disadvantages of being on that negative side of that spectrum. But I was just kind of trying to flip that and think about the disadvantages of the positives and stuff like that.
Yep. It's such a powerful tool because, like say you're a singer. So whereabouts are you in your journey? Like
towards the beginning, kind of.
So you put stuff on Instagram or you're doing gigs?
Yeah, a few Instagrams, gigs every now and again, not too regularly, but yeah, mostly just social media and stuff like that.
Yep. And yeah, so basically with the whole idea of becoming a singer or whatever, wherever you want to go with that journey, there is a certain element of that that's a fantasy. And so it's like, once I get to this part, I will be famous and it will be awesome. But coming back to that Elton John documentary, like there's a whole bunch of stuff to do with his journey that's fucked. Excuse my French. And so, yeah, he basically, yeah, like, so reading that book helps me understand the responsibility and accountability that comes along with that. Limp Bizkit, when they had Big Day Out many, many years ago, Fred Durst is up there singing, someone gets squashed in the mosh pit and dies. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. So having this fantasy, thinking that everything's going to be okay in the future, or only one-sided, is dangerous, because you then make decisions based on emotional, like, woo-hoo-hoo. So learning to keep your emotions in check just helps you be more present now. So you're not just like always trying to chase the fantasy and trying to eat things that are like sugar, sweet. Yeah, 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 yeah. So you're like, okay, cool. This is going to make me overweight. This is going to probably be bad for my long-term health. And so, yeah, you're just trying to keep that even keel. And I was kind of like that. I was like very flighty. And so Paul, my friend, whose name I said I wasn't going to mention, he was always just keeping me in check. And so I'm very grateful to have him in my life, because you need both of those people to lift you up and challenge you. But when you can do it better for yourself, you have less of those external experiences.
Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. All right. So everyone get the link? Yeah, so you can just, you can, at the end of that, you just put in your phone number and I'll just give you a call and we'll book in a time to have a chat. Awesome. Cool. Any questions, thoughts to finish up? I'll be here. I can stick around for probably another